In this tutorial, I am going to be walking you through how to create a seamless repeat pattern brush. Seamless repeat pattern brushes are kind of my thing. I love them. I think they're so much fun to create, and I think they're so useful in so many different illustrations, from hand lettering to illustrations that you do to just using them as a pattern. I think that they're so much fun and they're so useful. So I'm going to show you how to create in this live session today a geometric pattern. A geometric pattern I think is very beginner friendly, and I'm going to start with something super simple so it's really easy to follow along and give you the general principles of how to create a seamless pattern, and then you can take it from there and make it as complex as you would like. So to get started, I do want to just show you a couple of illustrations that use seamless pattern brushes just to give you a sense for what they even are. So I shared this image earlier, and I think it's just a good example because you can see in so many places here where I've used a seamless pattern brush. And if I open up the layers, you can see I'm gonna just turn this one off here so you can see on the mug. So before it was a mug, seamless pattern brush makes it a little more fun. And so I think seamless pattern brushes can really quickly and easily add a lot of texture and dimension to your work. I think they're a lot of fun to use. So just going back here, I'm going to show you one more illustration that you can see here. I've applied several different patterns. I have applied a stripe pattern to the inflatable tube here, kind of a wavy pattern. I have this one with circles and hearts, and I've applied patterns to the swimsuits, and I've even applied a pattern to the pool. And I've used some different tools to make these fit within the illustration, like the warp tool for the pool to make it look wavy like it's water, and I've used liquefy and warp tools to wrap these patterns around the inflatables. There's all kinds of things you can do with them. So to get started with how to create these, I am going to start off and create a new canvas. So click the plus sign here, and I'm going to start with a custom. I have quite a few ones that I use here, but just to start from the very beginning, I'm going to click this button. I like to use a canvas size of 4,000 by 4,000. For creating a seamless pattern, I would always recommend that you start with a square. And then for all of your work, I would always use a DPI of 300. So I'm just going to click create. Okay, so now we have our square. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our canvas for creating seamless patterns. So what we need to do is simply start by dragging and dropping a color onto our canvas. And then I'm going to click the selection tool. And then I'm going to tap the circle up here on the top left. And what I'm doing is I'm transforming this square from 4,000 by 4,000 to 2,000 by 2,000. And then you can just tap anywhere up here to release that. So what we're doing, and this will make more sense when we get a little bit further along, is we're setting up our canvas to create a repeat pattern. And so what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go to my layers panel, click with 2 fingers to select it. You'll see at the bottom here, you want to make sure that freehand is selected, and then you're going to click save and load, sorry. Click the plus button, and that'll save your first selection. So essentially, Procreate will remember that this corner is our first selection. So we're going to go back here, and we're just going to drag and drop again. Do the same thing. Top right hand corner, tap the circle, 2,000 by 2,000. And doing it this way, instead of trying to drag it, I'm gonna just snap back. So let me go back here and release it. Instead of trying to drag this, I like to use this option of clicking the node because it snaps right to the corner in the direction that you tap. And so you know it's exactly 2,000 by 2,000 pixels and there's no guesswork. So I'm gonna again use 2 fingers to select this layer, go to save and load, and add another selection. Release that. And we're just going to do that again for each corner. 2,000 by 2,000, release, select that layer with 2 fingers, save and load, and add that selection, and one more time. I'm going to do it for the fourth corner. And you can see I just accidentally put the wrong dimensions in here. So it's really best in that case just to start over because you want to make sure this is pixel perfect. So tap it again, 2000 by 2000, release that, select the layer, 2 fingers, and there we go, save and load. And so now we have all 4 corners saved as selections. So I'm going to release that, and we really don't need this anymore, so we can just clear this layer. So that's done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up my layers for creating the repeat pattern. This first layer I'm going to rename background, and this layer I'm going to rename elements. And then I'm just going to, with this layer selected, just pull right on the other layer, and that'll give you the option to group both of those together. For this new group, I'm just going to rename this pattern. And I'm going to be a little more specific here, and I'm going to call it circle pattern, because we're going to, well, if I can type and spell circle pattern. And apparently I cannot today. There you go. Okay, circle pattern. We're going to create a couple different patterns, so I want to be clear on which one we're doing. I like to stay really organized in my layers. It really helps me keep track of what I'm doing. So I'm going to collapse that layer. And then I am, actually no, take that back. I'm getting ahead of myself. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add a background. So for pattern brushes, and ultimately we're going to be creating a pattern brush out of this pattern, I like to use black and white. I think that's the best method when it comes to creating pattern brushes, and then later you can add color. So I'm going to select a pure white, and I have a palette created here that I know this is white, but if you want to grab it from the disc, let's say if we're over here, a quick way to get to true white is to double click over here, and that's going to give you true white. If you double click down here, that's going to give you true black. So we're going to go with white. Go back to my layers, make sure we're on background, and just drag this into the canvas. So you can't really see anything change here, but you can see our background filled in with white on the layers. And then I am going to go to elements. And again, we're going to start off with something really, really simple, because I think this is going to just give you the basics of how to create a pattern. And it's going to be a dotted pattern, and it's actually kind of a useful pattern. I think you can do a lot of things with it, so it's pretty good that way too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my brushes, and I'm just going to pick a monoline. It can be any monoline, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to select black for my color, and I'm just going to draw a circle. Let it snap, and then click Edit Shape, tap Circle. Okay, and then I'm going to drag and drop black. So we just have a black circle on our screen, and we're going to make sure it's centered. This is really important for a geometric pattern. You want to make sure you see both the horizontal and vertical orange lines, and let go. In order to have a pixel perfect pattern, you need to make sure it's exactly centered. So we're going to release that selection. Okay, now before we do anything else, I want to duplicate this. You'll see why in a minute. But I want to duplicate this, and I'm actually just going to take this out of that group altogether. We're going to save it and use it in a minute. I'm going to turn it off. That's going to be something we're going to use in a minute. Okay, so now we have our first element created. We want to go ahead and create our repeat pattern. Let me just make sure I'm still streaming here. I was getting a error message. Okay, hopefully we're still okay. So I'm going to collapse this, this group here, and this is where I'm going to use the selections that we created previously. Sorry, just making sure that I'm still working here. Okay, so with this group selected, then we're going to select it. We're going to go to the selection tool. We're going to go to save and load. We're going to select our first selection here. So just tap on first selection, and then go to your selection, this arrow, And then we're going to flip horizontal and vertical. So essentially we're taking these 4 quadrants and we're just flipping them to the outside, which is going to create our seamless pattern. Okay, and then we want to release this. Again, making sure that you don't tap anywhere because it will create a seam in your pattern if you move any of these elements even 1 pixel. So then we're going to select again, save and load, selection 2, select that, flip horizontal, flip vertical, and release that selection. Sorry, we're going to continue. Selection 3, same thing, flip, flip, selection 4, select, flip, and flip. Okay, so now we have actually created a repeat pattern. If we use this as is, you would get a pattern of black dots. But we want to make this a little bit more interesting, and so that's why I saved this extra element here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn this back on. You can see that adds a circle back into the center of our pattern, and we're going to pull this down into our group. So now at this point, you could actually make any other changes you wanted to this pattern. We're going to keep it pretty simple and geometric with the circles, but as long as you're not going over the edges, you could add any elements that you want at this point, and it would still create a seamless pattern because our corners have all been already created. So what we're going to do for this pattern is I'm going to change this to kind of a medium gray, just to make some different dots. Okay, and so now we've created our seamless pattern. Let's test it out. So what you can do to test it out is duplicate your layer and then flatten that and duplicate that 3 more times. And then what I'm going to do is selecting your first layer here, tap your selection tool, again, tap the node and make it half the size, 2000 by 2000. Release that selection. We're going to do the same on the next layer, but going to the top right hand corner and release that selection. Same for this one, going to the bottom left, release that selection, and go to your 4th layer, 2000 by 2000. So there we go. So we can see we have a seamless repeat pattern, which is great. This is what we were going for. So we've tested it out, we know it works. It's a very simple pattern, but it's really useful, actually. You can use these dots for a lot of different things. So now what I'm going to do is go back to our layer where we created our seamless tile, and I'm just going to tap and hold the square here. And as a quick tip, that's a quick way just to select the one layer that you want or the group that you want, is just to tap and hold. So it's just a quick little tip that I use a lot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create our brush. So this is the fun part. So what I'm going to do first is go to the wrench icon here, copy my canvas, go to my brushes, and I'm just going to go to a brush library I've created here for tutorial, but you can save this and create it anywhere that you would like. I'm going to click the brush, the plus sign here in the brush library to create a new one. So this is where we enter our brush studio, and there are so many settings in here. It can be a little bit overwhelming, so I'm not going to go over all of it. I'm only going to go over just the basics to get you started with creating a pattern brush. So we're not going to change anything with stroke path or taper. I'm going to go first to shape. And this shape we have here, I'm actually not going to change, but I'm going to show you how you would change it. Go to Edit, Import, and Source Library. So Source Library, this is your shape source. So this is the shape of your brush. And there's all kinds of built-in options that come with Procreate. We're going to keep it simple, and I think this works best for a geometric pattern, and go with this round, hard shape. So then you'll just click Done. Then we're going to go to Grain, and then click Edit. Click Import, and then Paste. So this pastes the image that we just copied from our canvas, and this is our seamless repeat tile, and we know it works because we tested it out. Click Done. And then we're going to go to Rendering. So with rendering, you can see with light glaze, if I test it out here in my drawing pad, you can see those lighter gray ones aren't really showing up. So we need to change how this is rendering. And if you click light glaze, then those lighter ones will show up. We don't need to make any other changes here. So I'm gonna click done, and actually I shouldn't have clicked done. I'm gonna go back here. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Apple Pencil, and you wanna make sure that you turn down your opacity to none. And this will make sure that when you're applying your pattern brush that there's not any variation with the pressure of your Apple Pencil. So from there, I'm actually gonna go back to grain because I wanna play around with one more thing, and that's the scale. So you can see over here in our drawing pad, we put, apply this brush here so you can kind of see it. You can see that it's pretty large. I wanna bring it down a little bit so it's a little more versatile in some of my illustrations. So I'm gonna do maybe 12%. So this gives us this nice dotty pattern. And then finally I'm gonna go to About Brush, and you can change this here. You can add a picture if you'd like. You can go ahead and sign it. I'm just gonna quickly sign my initials here. And I'm gonna call this Dotty Tutorial Brush. Very creative name there. So, and then one thing I've noticed, I think this might just be a quirk with Procreate, but if I click done now, for some reason, the About Brush information won't save. Don't know if that's just me or others have that issue, but how I work around that is just to click off of About Brush to anywhere and then click done and it'll save it. So then we have our brush here, our Dotty Tutorial Brush, and I'm going to now test this brush out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a new layer, and I'm gonna use that trick to tap and hold on this layer so that it only selects that one layer. And then I'm gonna pick a color. I'm just gonna go with something bright here so you can see a bright kind of pink color and test it out. All right, so you can see our pattern brush works. You can see we've got our seamless repeat pattern here, and there's so many things that you could do with this. You can paint it on and apply it to your illustrations using clipping mats and warp tools and liquify and all kinds of fun things you can do. So that's it. That's essentially how you make a very simple geometric repeat pattern and a pattern brush. It's really quite simple and very fun when you get the hang of it. There's a lot of things that you can play around with and be really creative. So I'm actually going to just show one other option of how to create a geometric brush. So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated. I'm going to show you just a few more tips with that one. So I'm going to stay in the same document here. I'm just going to turn that off. And I'm going to create a new group here. I'm going to do the same thing we did before, and I'm going to call this background. Goodness, I really can't type when I'm live, apparently. Background. And then rename this elements. Okay, and then select both of those and group. I'm going to call this, I can't be creative on the fly, so I'm going to just call this new pattern. And we don't need to go through the process of dragging and dropping our color and then creating our selections because we already did this in this canvas, so it's remembered. And that's something that I use. I actually have a template created where I can just pull up my canvas, and I've already done that process of creating my selection, so I can just get right into my pattern design. So that may be something you want to consider, is creating your own template with the selections already completed. So now I'm on the new pattern. I'm going to do the same thing here and go to background, and I'm going to double click here, make sure I have white, drag and drop that in, and then I'm going to go to my elements. This time for my elements, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my, we're going to do our assisted drawing. So we're going to go to Canvas and then click Drawing Guide and then Edit Drawing Guide. And I want to do something symmetrical because we're still looking at geometric patterns. We can do a lot of different things with the symmetry. So we go to Options here. I'm going to pick Quadrant. So it's repeating in all four corners, everything that we draw, and just click Done. So now on this layer, you can see Assisted is noted, and that means our drawing assist is turned on for this layer. So I'm going to go and select our true black for this one. And for this, I'm just going to start getting creative. I don't even know exactly what this is going to turn out. So it's going to be on the fly that I'm creating this. And what I want to do, actually, I still have my pattern brush on. So I want to go back and I'm just going to pick just any, and I'm going to zoom in here so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Fun little pattern here. I don't really like the edges on that, so let me do that again. We don't want to do that. Okay. So I'd probably clean this up a little bit, but for just the purposes of this tutorial, I'm gonna go with this, and I'm gonna do color fill. Again, I'm just kind of experimenting, and we're gonna come up with hopefully a fun pattern here. So I want to add a few other elements to this. I want to maybe put a circle in here, so I'm just gonna create a circle, edit shape, and I want that to be a circle, and then I want to color drop that. Maybe we want to kind of repeat this angle here. Let me do that again. Maybe you want to do something like that. Maybe we want to create kind of a little teardrop here. Really just playing with this, you can do anything. And maybe we want to create another kind of teardrop here, kind of a little more like a heart. Again, I'd probably clean this up a little bit, but for demonstration purposes, I think this is okay. So we're gonna create that element here. And then I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna actually just duplicate this, and I'm gonna pull that out of the group and just save that for later. And we'll do something with it later. So from here, what I'm gonna do is create my first repeat. So I'm gonna collapse that. I'm gonna go back to selection, save and load, selection 1, select, flip and flip. Selection 2, select, flip and flip. Selection 3, select, flip, flip. Selection 4. Okay, so now we should have a repeating pattern. We want to do a little bit more to this. So I'm gonna bring that element back that I had saved earlier, and I'm just gonna pull it back in. So you can see that kind of creates this center image, and I don't know exactly what this is gonna look like when we test it out, but it looks pretty fun so far. So I just wanna add something different to this. If we went with the pattern how it is, you would have this element repeated across the entire pattern, but I wanna break it up a little bit and do something different. So for this, I'm gonna just add some additional elements in the center of this one. Again, you can make any changes you want, as long as you're not going across the edges at this point. One thing I do want to do is I want to make sure I turn off assist. And actually, you know what? I should have actually turned off assist before I did the pattern. So I'm going to go back actually. Let me redo. And I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off drawing assist now, just to make sure we don't mess anything up with this pattern. It's perfectly seamless. So let me do that quickly one more time. Okay, so now that drawing assist is off, we're going to turn drawing assist off of this one and pull it back in, turn it back on, and do a little more work. So I'm going to go get this medium gray, and I'm just going to do some fun things in the center here. Let's see, we might go with something kind of similar. And you know, actually what we need to do now is we need to turn drawing assist back on. We're going to go to symmetry and options and make sure we're on quadrant again and click done. So in our layer, we're going to make sure drawing assist is on, and that'll give us that quadrant look that we want. So I'm just going to do a few things here. Just creating some different designs here. And actually, I am going to turn drawing assist off this one and create a new layer for this, and try turn drawing assist back on. So I might just kind of create this oval, and maybe we want to kind of repeat this line here. Maybe we want some kind of circle here. Let's see, I don't really like that. Let's do another teardrop. My teardrops are looking a little bit like hearts, but that's okay. I don't think we closed this completely, so make sure to close it. Okay. And then you might want to do, maybe you want to do some kind of little floral element here. And maybe we'll do another floral element here. And one more here. So you can make this as complex or as simple as you like. Really just have fun with it. Play around, see what works, see what you like. So from here, I think we're gonna call it done for now. And I'm gonna test this pattern out. So I'm gonna collapse this, duplicate it, and flatten it. And I should have mentioned this before, but I do like to duplicate it and keep the original with all the layers in case you want to go back and make any changes. I think that's just a good practice instead of flattening it all down. So duplicate this 4 times again, and then we're going to do the same process we did before, shrinking down each corner. And this is where we can see if we did what we were supposed to do. And our pattern is truly seamless. I think that looks pretty good. And it's interesting because you never know exactly what this is going to quite look like until you pull the repeat pattern together. So it's always kind of fun. And then a quick tip that I like to do sometimes too, if it's a pattern like this, I'm going to just collapse all those by pinching. And I'm going to duplicate those again. Essentially, this is a way to kind of zoom out on your pattern. So I'm going to shrink those down one more time. This gives us kind of a better sense of what the repeat looks like. So it looks pretty neat, I think. And that you can see is kind of a better idea of what the repeating pattern is going to look like when we kind of zoom out again. So I like that. So we're going to go back to our pattern. Click and hold. So this is just our repeat. And what I'm going to do here is again go to the wrench icon, I'm going to go to canvas, add, copy canvas. I'm going to go to our brush library, back to tutorial, and to this Dottie tutorial brush that we just made. To save our settings that we did last time, this saves a ton of time when you're creating multiple brushes. What we're going to do is actually just duplicate this because we know we like all the settings on that. And so I'm going to go to this new brush, and all I have to change here is grain, edit, import, and paste, and click done. And then we may want to play with the scale. For this one, I may want to bring the scale up just a little bit so we can really see it better. And then about brush, I'm just going to call this, so we know it's something different, fun pattern. Click off of that and then click done. And then I'm going to create one more layer here, tap and hold to select it. And then let's pick another color. Let's pick, let's go with this kind of green color. I think that'll look nice. And then I want to make sure we turn off our drawing guide. We don't want that on anymore. Okay. So then you can see we have our repeat pattern. And if you want to fill in your entire canvas with a repeat pattern, I recommend you put your brush size all the way up and then just brush across the entire canvas, just making sure you don't lift your pencil at all. if you do lift your pencil and start over again, it's gonna do this. So it's not gonna fully fill the canvas with your pattern. So just make sure that you're not lifting your pencil, and then cover the entire canvas with your pattern. And so this can be fun just to create just this, just as is, just a pattern with your canvas. And you can see it's seamless, geometric pattern. So the possibilities are really endless on the things that you can create here. And I just want to show you one more thing before we wrap up. I'm going to go back to my brush and show you something else you can do. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to About Brush, and I'm going to create Reset Point. So if I ever want to go back to what I have here, I can just reset it, and it'll go back to what we currently have, and I can play around with some other things now. So I'm going to go back to Grain. I'm going to increase the scale a little more for this. Edit, and then just tap with 2 fingers, and that actually inverts your pattern. Click Done, and Done, and then I'm going to paint this on again. Let's just, for fun, pick a new color. Let's go with this peach color. And so you can see that this has been inverted now. So it gives us a different look. And we've also, of course, increased the scale. So this is something you could do and just paint it on your canvas and export your square, and it's pretty much Instagram ready for you to share. So that's my tutorial on creating geometric patterns. I hope this has been helpful and you learned a few tips. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Please feel free to reach out on Facebook or Instagram or wherever you may find me. I'm Candace Baldwin Design, pretty much everywhere on social media. So it's been fun hanging out with you, and I'll still be posting some tutorials the rest of the day, and I look forward to chatting with you. Thanks.